Buckle up, we're Duncan, Jeff, and Sloan. Let's fill our cups. Commander decks in hand, the battle's about to start. A podcast for the legends, where magic meets the heart. Commander's Pod, where the stories unfold, with heroes and villains, new and old. Duncan, Jeff, and Sloan guide the way in the world of EDH we play.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to a very special episode of Commander's Pod. My name's Duncan. I'm joined by Sloan.
Hello.
And Jeff.
What's up?
And we have a lot to talk about today, to say the least. But before we get into the big topic everybody wants to hear about, Sloan, you wanted to talk about some other news that may have fallen by the wayside.
So maybe happier news.
Yeah, more pleasant news, I would call it. So Netflix has announced that they are restarting the animated series for Magic the Gathering, which is very exciting because literally, I don't remember, a couple episodes maybe, we talked about how the show started and it just kind of fell apart, which is kind of weird because there's so much story that you can do and develop in the world of Magic the Gathering. And yet for some reason, they're just like, no, there's no way anyone's going to enjoy this show animated out of a game that's been around since the early 90s. Who would enjoy that?
Right.
Cough, cough, Pokemon, cough, cough, Yu-Gi-Oh! So, I mean, it's a little weird that it fell apart somehow.
Yeah.
But according to this article, it says that they are scrapping all of the original ideas and it's going to be started from scratch. It should be starting soon. And it looks like one of the guys, one who's going to start the production soon, is going to be led by Terry Matalis, who apparently did Star Trek Picard and the upcoming show Vision coming out on Disney Plus soon.
Which Star Trek Picard was great if you ignore some parts of the first season.
Well, like the whole entire plot that they ripped off.
Hold on. Spoilers coming. Spoilers coming.
Yeah,
Fast
if you haven't
forward if you
watched
don't want to hear
the
'em.
first episode of 3, which the third one came out a year ago.
Yeah, the first season.
Yeah, where they totally ripped off the entire premise of the Mass Effect first game.
Yeah.
The entire story, almost word for word. Anyway.
Which was a great story, though. So if you're going to rip something off, at least rip off a good story.
But anyway, that's very cool.
So, yeah, I'm very excited about it because it is supposed to focus around some of the main planeswalkers, he said, from the game. So, you know, your Jace, your Johnny, your Chandra, Liliana. So hopefully we'll be seeing all those appear. And hopefully more notably, which is something that I'm a little bit more excited about, I'm excited to see who they actually get to voice act some of the parts because...
well, they can't get James Earl Jones.
No, unfortunately, R.I.P.
Okay.
Sorry. But yeah, so they won't get him. But there are with some of our other hobbies like D&D, there's a couple of shows that we watch, and one of the ones
100
I
to
watch,
1, Matt Mercer's getting a role.
I mean, that is the number one guy. I want to see if he gets a role, who he gets, because I think he would be a great like Jace type character. Even the guy who plays
well, and if you get any of those
shows.
guys doing it, it will bring more publicity.
Yeah, because
maybe they'll record themselves playing it.
Well, and I will say, I do know for a fact that all of them, because they've talked about it, because I watched some of their series, have all played Magic or do play Magic. So I know that they are somewhat familiar with the world of Magic as it stands. So very excited about that. That's the more pleasant news.
Right.
Well,
that
we're excited
about.
about the possibility of it. I don't really believe any of it until they start hiring people and start doing things.
Yeah, proof's in the pudding, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
And they got pretty far the first time and then scrapped it. They had footage and they had stills they had shown off, and then they immediately were like...
Which if they
no.
scrapped it, it must not have been good. So
Right.
that's concerning.
Right. Well, we'll see what happens.
I wonder if they are paying attention to what's been going on recently, if they'll do any nods to things we're going to talk about today in the show, which would be hilarious.
No, there's absolutely no way. But so let's talk about the main topic, the elephant in the room.
Bum, bum, bum.
The Rules Committee has banned, and I'm sure all of you know, and if you don't, then crawl out from under that rock and listen closely. They have banned Mana Crypt, Jeweled Lotus, Dockside Extortionist. Oh, yeah, and Nadu. Nadu.
It's the only one that no one cares about.
Right, that's the one they should have done.
The mistake card.
I can't help feel like this is my fault.
Yeah, okay, so I do want to disclaimer. Me and Jeff, 100% Duncan's fault. He is the one that said that they are useless and they don't do anything. We just nodded to make him feel better.
If you haven't listened to the last episode we did, Go ahead and listen to that, episode 33, because
Which ironically came out the week that they did the band.
we recorded that
The week
a week and a
before.
half before.
Right.
because of vacations.
Because of
because
vacations
of
and
timing.
stuff. We
Oh
tend
my
to record
gosh.
2 episodes at a time for the next 2 weeks. And in that, we spoke about my opinions that the rules committee was not going to
You're-
do anything.
Your very hot take opinion.
Yes.
my God.
Yeah. And we talked a lot
You
about
basically dared them to do this.
yeah, and we talked a lot about Joel Lotus,
Yeah.
Dockside Extortionist,
Yeah.
and Manacrypt. So
Yes.
I guess one of our 25 listeners was on the rules committee.
I guess so, but like one of the things I kind of forgot because we had a hurricane here where we're at. So
we did survive.
We survived. Our week kind of got messed up.
We didn't have a hurricane. We had the edge of a hurricane.
Right, we got hit by the edge of it. But because our week got messed up, we all work at the same place and the place was closed when the hurricane was hitting and stuff. I forgot that our episode came out, and I always like to jump on there and listen to it and kind of so I can take notes and stuff. And when we started listening to it, and then we get to the part where Duncan starts ranting, I'm like, this is hysterical. This is literally the funniest thing possible because we recorded this in advance. It could not have been better time that this episode came out on this Thursday. So
Yeah, so I'm sorry, everybody. It's not really my fault, but it sure feels like it. I mean, to be fair, I've ranted about them before and said they did nothing, but maybe they just got tired of hearing
well,
about it.
remember when our population of listeners went from 1 to 3 to 6 to 12 to 25, that's when they banned. That's when it happened.
Well, I don't know the exact number. I'm being
The-
facetious, but it's more than 25. But anyway, so yeah, we were just talking about them, and
Yeah.
in my opinion, they weren't going to do anything. It had been 3 years. I mean, I had a pretty good
And
history to point at and say, look,
Sure. And I thought they were maybe not doing anything because of some of the things that had happened recently. But as it turns out, Johnny, you looked something up where they hadn't made a decision in 3 years.
yeah,
Or at least they
Go-
had not banned anything in 3
Golos
years.
Tireless Pilgrim was the last ban, and it was 3 years ago.
and when they banned him, they unbanned something. I can't remember what they unbanned.
I think it
though.
was Iona, maybe.
It's something like that. It might have been.
But
yeah, I mean,
regardless,
and before we delve too deep into this and we start talking about our opinions and our thoughts, I just want to do a small disclaimer. This is a serious disclaimer. One, these are our thoughts and opinions on the matter. Take them for what you want. If you agree with us, disagree with us, send us an email. Let us know what you think, or write it in the comments, whatever makes you feel best. Secondly, though, there have been a lot of threats on people's lives to the committee and to the CAG and to the rules committee. We do not condone.
Allegedly, we don't-
Allegedly.
no, it's not allegedly. It is 100% verified that these have happened.
So
Okay.
we do not condone those. We do not think that's okay.
No.
We do not think it's okay for you to threaten people's lives over a piece of cardboard.
Yeah.
not
Any of
okay.
you that did that need to reevaluate your life choices, and you need to stop immediately. Nothing in a game is worth threatening somebody's life over.
And this is where we've talked about this many times. that, Like, if you're this invested in this game, you need to take a break.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, this is not that important. It's just not.
I mean, I am obsessed with Magic the Gathering. I go to as many conventions as I can go to. I buy a lot of it. I play it
A
at
lot
least
of
2
it.
days a week for 6+ hours. I when I'm not playing it, I'm usually building or doing a podcast or something else. I am always involved in Magic the Gathering in
Right.
some way, shape, or form. And I lost a lot of money on this.
Yeah,
You
you
know,
were heavily invested.
I
Yeah,
was heavily invested, not invested like I wasn't trying to do it to make money. I did it to have cards to play in decks.
right.
But I lost a lot of money.
Yeah, and I didn't lose nearly what you did, but I certainly lost a decent amount too.
Right.
But again, it doesn't matter because they're just cards.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
I think
I'm- My
there
point is, I'm that invested. I've spent that kind of money. I would never think of threatening somebody's life over it.
No, and you did call me while we were in Orlando, and we're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm losing so much money."
Yeah.
So it does impact you, but you just have to put it in perspective. It's just
Right.
not worth. It's wild. What I can't imagine though is that there are people that are they're not playing this game for the love of the game. They're not playing this game for fun. Maybe they are investing in this, and I mean,
Well,
if
there
you
is
want to
the
get into that,
MTG stock side of it.
we're
right?
not finance guys for MTG, okay?
No.
We're not finance guys for finance.
Nope.
So maybe there's a certain degree of those people that lost a ton. It still doesn't make it okay to threaten people's lives.
Right.
That's and hopefully they're getting the FBI and those involved to find out who these dudes are, because you can't do that crap.
And the thing is, they didn't even do their research first. They were threatening people on the rules advisory group.
I mean, people like that are probably threatening everybody.
Yeah.
If it's to be fair.
The rules advisory group, as it turns out, was never even told or consulted about this before it happened.
That's wild.
Right. So the most notorious people who probably put out a video about this is going to be the Command Zone, which I feel like we should just bring up real quick.
Yeah, the most popular.
Well,
not
because
notorious.
Josh Lee Kwai is on or at least he was.
He was
on the CAG, right? He was on the Commander Advisory group.
And we actually talked about him in the last video, and last recording, that I thought he was the perfect person to be on one of those boards.
Right. And so.
But so let's talk about this for a minute, though. Let's talk about, so they did not consult the advisory group.
Mm-hmm.
They did not tell the advisory group this was coming because they were worried about leaks. So that tells you they didn't trust the advisory group, their own advisory group that they chose.
Yeah, so that's coming back to that idea of the finance side, where we also talked about in the last recording, which was, is there a sort of insider trading type of deal going on? And there was probably fear
now,
of that.
Again, now that's a whole other subject. I want to talk about
all these are webs.
I
They're
know.
all
I know. This
interconnected.
is all connected, but I want to focus on the advisory group. The point of the advisory group was to have people that were out in the field that had high visibility.
Right.
That could be kind of a face to this faceless group, but also advisors about how would this be received? What if we did this? How do you think that would?
And what did we just learn?
That they don't care.
No,
And they don't trust it.
They're just a face to take the
brunt?
heat, the brunt of it, or to make things look better for Magic. Well, and I don't even know if it's Magic. It's really just this rules committee.
Yeah, just the EDH rules committee.
Well, because the other thing is I think in his video he said that they were asked about certain cards months ago, but when the time actually came to it, they were not brought into it. Like they weren't, like in this final decision, they weren't brought into it, I think is what he said in his video.
Right. They weren't even warned it was coming.
So they were aware that there were these cards that might be on the list, right? Josh, I believe he said in his video, I might be misremembering, I'm pretty sure he said that they were aware that these were cards that were being considered, as well as a whole pool of other cards, right? So...
And I'm sure, like us, even though they knew they were on the list, it's like Mana Crypt, that's been around since the very beginning.
Right. Yeah, what he did say
that?
is normally what the rules committee will do is they will advise them maybe a couple hours before it happens, and then they put the announcement out. So that way they kind of know a little ahead of time, again, from my recollection from the video that him and Rachel Weeks put out. So I do think I think that's a little concerning. That could maybe lean into why Josh might have left.
Right.
With the fact that they didn't trust him.
Kristen Gregory left as well.
Right.
That's two members
It's
of the
surprising to me that all of them didn't leave.
I mean, I don't know why they wouldn't. But here's the thing. We don't really know why they left.
Right. There's no
They
actual...
left very polite.
Well, because they're both professional people.
Well, they left very polite public statements that they appreciated their time on there. Did they leave because of the death threats? Did they leave because they weren't advised or even told ahead of time that this was happening or asked about it? Nobody knows. Maybe it was all that. Maybe they're like, we're receiving death threats. We're getting harassed. We weren't even... The job we were supposed to do, we didn't even get to do.
Well, and it's not worth it. If you're Josh Lee Kwai or really probably anyone on the group, the publicity you might get from this there's no way it's worth it.
Oh, I don't think you get publicity. You get it because you have publicity.
Well, but it also does bring some clout. I mean, to some degree.
Right. Yeah. No,
but
it's
not
prestigious.
It's not worth it. It's not worth it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if I was in that position, right? If I had this position of I'm supposed to be someone that they come to and kind of discuss these things beforehand, and I give an input from a part of the game that maybe they're not thinking about, whether it be the business side, because Josh Lee Kwai, like Jeff said, very business minded, very successful in that sense, whether it's the environment of the community side, whatever it may be. And then you go and do this, that completely would invalidate me as, why am I even here then? Like, if you're just going to do this, Why should I be here?
Well,
I'm just gonna leave. I
Yeah.
guess. Like,
Give me a heads up that you're
that's-
about to drop a bomb.
Right, like that's kind of the. If you haven't seen their video, by the way, the Command Zones video with Josh Lucas and Rachel, I would highly advise you to go watch it and kind of see their demeanor about this as they go through it, because you can kind of see there's almost a little bit of, at least from when I was watching it, there's a little bit of irritation, not even from Rachel, mainly from Josh. Like he kind of had this level of like he was a little frustrated, not at the bans,
sure,
but the way it happened and how I think, because they mentioned a lot in their video, like, please stop sending death threats to people. This is not okay. Like,
who exactly is receiving death threats? Is
like
it the whole
pretty much
CAG?
everybody.
So
like
one of
everyone
the
that could
people
possibly be involved.
Right, but one of the people early on that was getting the most death threats was Olivia from the Rules Committee.
Yeah.
And the Rules Committee actually put out a statement and broke protocol from what they normally do and said, look, we don't usually tell how people vote, but we're going to tell you she was against this. She wanted to ban Dockside and Nadu, of course, and then discuss the fact that Mana Crypt and Jewel Lotus were on a watch list and see how things played
Prepare
out.
the public.
Prepare the public, but also see if it was necessary.
Yeah.
Because banning Dockside, there's a ton of combos with Dockside to make bajillions of treasures, infinite treasures. I mean, ridiculous combos.
Yeah,
and there was a lot of back and forth. Somebody plays the Dockside, somebody copies it, somebody...
Yeah,
you
it
know.
affected games a lot, whereas Mana Crypt, certainly it had the potential to throw you ahead by a lot. But, I mean, how many games have we seen each other die to that?
Right.
And we just played a game not too long ago, and I literally died to my own Mana Crypt.
Right. So, I mean, that was her idea, and that seems like a far more reasonable and rational way to go about
Sure,
it to me.
which is
She
what
was the
they
voice of
exist
reason
for
in
is-
the room,
Yeah.
and she was receiving a bunch of death threats.
So they did. So the rules committee is the one that encourages. They're not. So she's actually on the committee that voted.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
And Josh is on the advisory, which doesn't vote. They just
Which
put in
didn't.
input.
Which didn't get a chance to really. Advise.
Yeah, if I'm remembering the video correctly, Josh said that they were talked to about it like months ago, like when it was still in its infancy, I guess.
And they didn't have time. You got to figure that places like Josh's company, they prepare things in advance. So
Yeah.
the heads up would have helped them because they're a high production. Like we're very low production in comparison.
So, and here,
Right.
let's talk about the fact that they said they didn't want to leak, right?
Yeah.
So they had been discussing with Wizards for a year, is what the Rules Committee said before they did this.
So there was already a leak.
So they told Wizards, but wouldn't tell their own advisory group. And then also, so there's been a lot of speculation about what happened to the Rules Committee's cards when they did this.
Yeah, which
And nobody knows. There is no proof of anything. There is no smoking gun. There is nothing that says that they did this, right? So what I'm about to say, this could have been Wizards employees. This could have also been just coincidence. Seems unlikely. Could have been coincidence. On average, Mana Crypts, somebody did the research. You can look on like TCG Player and see the history of the card. Mana Crypt was selling about 2 to 3 a day. In the weeks, I think it was week and a half or 2 weeks leading up to the announcement, 12 to 14 a day.
yeah, so it leaked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then the question becomes, and there's no like authority that is going to go and research this, so we'll never know. But what happened to the Rules Committee's cards?
Yeah.
And this happened before, by the way. I don't know the specific card, but speaking of Rachel Weeks used to be on the
It was
advisory
Paradox Engine.
group. That's right.
It was Paradox
It
Engine.
was Paradox Engine. She was on the advisory group. And before Paradox Engine got banned, she had sold her cards with full knowledge of what was going on.
Right.
Right.
So
it's tough because we get into these type of situations where we're talking about what other people did that we're hearing potentially secondhand. We can say it's confirmed,
Yeah.
but we don't really know.
yeah,
That
I wasn't
could be
there. I don't know
untrue
the story,
about
but to
Rachel
my
Weeks.
understanding, she did admit to it. I think at the time she didn't think that there was anything wrong with that.
because it's just a small card.
Yeah,
but it's not.
It
as
wasn't like
expensive
she
as Mana
unloaded
Crypt
like
either.
hundreds or anything.
No, and Mana Crypt's a lot more expensive than
Right.
Paradox. I think Paradox Engine even then was only like $20.
Yeah, I don't
There,
think it
I
peaked
think
much higher than
Wizards
that.
needs to make. So remember when they sent the Pinkertons out, right? Because their product ended up in a influencer's hands,
Sure.
and he was going to release them early in videos. And there's things like this that come up or that come up. And I'm not saying they should have like a security branch, but they should have an oversight branch that just looks into things, not Pinkerton level, not like going into places and like kicking down doors.
Yeah.
But in this instance, would go and talk to the rules committee and say beforehand, number one, and say, hey, we need to make sure you understand you are in charge of a rule set for the most popular format of one of the biggest money-making trading card games ever.
Right.
And you have a responsibility to behave in a way that respects that. And if you are going to ban a card, you can't sell your copies before you announce it.
One would like to see if there's some sort of commitment that they agree to. Like that would be nice to see. If you're going to be on this committee, that you sign a
Code of conduct.
Yeah, that's expected, and then you can lose your position if you
do
fail
these
to
things.
meet that code of conduct. And I think that would help those members too, because like I feel bad for Rachel in that situation, because she's like, she was probably never involved in something like that before, and she just sold their card and then got a bunch of heat for it.
Right.
Where if they would have let her know up front, hey, this is not a best practice. And a lot of times you could look in businesses too when you deal with accounting, and there are certain rules that you have to follow, and there are certain rules you should follow. And not every business knows that, unless you have a good accountant, CFO, someone who's telling you what you need to follow. And in that case, I believe a code of conduct would help them.
Yeah. No, I think it's probably something they should look into.
I would also say this. I don't think they get paid to do this.
No, it is 100% gratis.
At the end of the day, I do have to ask the question, like, and sure, there will be people mad at me for this, but I don't care. I'm not in Magic to make money. There's no part of me that thinks that I'm retiring off my collection.
Right.
If anything, I fully expect my collection to be worth less 20 years from now than it is now. And if it's not, great. But it is not a financial thing for me that I'm building wealth through Magic cards.
Well, to
And
some
so I
degree, but
don't
you have
care.
stated before that you like buying those big, expensive cards to play.
I do. But they change. The big expensive card is this one today, and tomorrow it's this other card. And today this one's expensive, tomorrow it's not.
And
sometimes it has to do with bannings, but a lot of times
So-
it's just the meta.
Let's talk about the value for a minute,
Yeah.
right? So the day that I knew about this, you're the one who told me.
Yeah. So
Actually, I saw it through a video, but you had texted me previous.
Yeah.
Somebody else sent me a video.
yeah, one of my buddies. So one of the groups that I'm on with Discord, with some of my gaming buddies. They're a bunch of Magic guys, and I play with them online. And one of them sent an article and tagged all of us that have the Magic tag. And I saw it, and I legitimately thought someone was pranking, like someone did a joke.
Yeah, that's what I thought when I saw the
Because
video. I
it
thought they were gonna be
was-
like, "We're just kidding."
It was so out of left field and so ridiculous. I was like, this has to be fake.
These bannings were?
Yeah, like they were so out of nowhere, and so like because there was no warning, there was no
3
and-
years of nothing, and then the biggest ban they've ever done.
Right.
3 major hitters, and then something that needed to be done.
and then nothing got unbanned either, which was another big point to it. But so then when I saw it, I looked up the article. Sure enough, it was real. I grabbed the screen capture and I sent it to you guys, and I said, just so you know, this just happened. And at that time, it was 48 minutes ago that the article was leaked.
Yeah, but
sent out.
when you sent that and then when you called me, I wasn't surprised at all.
I don't know why you wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if one of those cards was banned, right? If
Right.
they announced Dockside was banned, that wouldn't be that shocking.
Yeah, if they
announced-
said Nandu and Nadu one other one, like I would have understood that.
Yeah.
Like that would have been fine.
But 3 staples of high power EDH.
I think what they made a very clear message that
Oh,
what
for
has
sure.
happened in Magic is fast mana has become a problem.
But so the value, right? So I went and looked
Yeah.
later on when the shock wore off. I was like, I'm just curious. What's the price right now? So I went and looked. Jewel Lotus was sitting at $38, but some had sold as low as $15.
yeah, I bet
'Cause people
they're
panicked,
basically
sold.
worthless.
Yep.
well, they're
Well,
literally
hold on,
worthless.
hold on, but they're not. They're not.
They still go in some decks.
Yeah. So $38 is what it was. Mana Crypt was down to like 100. Dockside was down to like 20. Since then, I haven't looked today, but a couple days ago I looked. Joel Lewis had come up a couple bucks to 42. Mana Crypt had come up a little bit to like between 100 110. and Dockside was at like 30 or 40.
Well,
Now, so I mean that. So
where's
there's
Mana Crypt then?
about 110.
So I do wonder if there's a degree to which, sort of what happens out there in the world is if we could put enough, certain people think this way, if we can put enough pressure, if we can make life terrible enough, they'll reverse this decision. So at some point we need to kind of discuss what our feelings are on the decision itself.
So here's the thing. You can be respectful, right? And we've already said no death threats, but you can be respectful. State your opinion in an intelligent manner. That's going to be well received, right? Maybe they're not going to listen to you, but at least they're going to not be offended or automatically shut out what you're saying.
Right.
It has more likelihood of being received well.
Right.
Harassing them, DMing them constantly, and to the point where many of the rules committee members have gotten off of social media.
Right.
Those type of tactics are not going to work.
Well,
there was a petition that is going around.
Let's take a second. Whether they work or not doesn't matter. Sometimes those tactics do work. They're still wrong.
Right.
We've seen that a lot in the real world where threatening people and threatening with violence, there's times where things like that work. It doesn't make it okay. It doesn't make it right. Whether it's effective or not, it shouldn't be happening.
Right. And I really hope that the people doing these things are being investigated by the FBI because that is a federal crime.
Yeah, to threaten someone's life is a crime.
And online bullying is actually a crime. To the level that it was done. They have had cyber attacks exerted against them as well.
It's wild because we get into that. What's it called? The swatting type stuff.
Yeah,
where that happens to actors, YouTubers, all kinds of different people. Releasing people's addresses and nonsense like that. Those are all threats designed to get someone to change their mind, and it's absolutely unacceptable. And if you know people that are doing that, you need to be having a conversation with them. It's not just if you're doing it.
I would go a step further. You should probably be turning them in.
Well, if they're doing the death threats, but even if they're just doing the other stuff, like just I guess the bullying too is. But even just the annoying behavior, if
you really think that the person just is ignorant and doesn't realize what they're, death threats, anybody should know what's wrong.
Yeah, turn in people with death threats for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, maybe if you think that your person is just not that socially aware and didn't know, sure, have a conversation. But if you think they knew what they were doing or willfully doing it, turn them in.
And take some responsibility for what you're putting out there too. If you are spewing vitriol out there from whatever platform you have, even if it's just your cell phone, you're responsible to some degree for what you do. And just understand that other people, it's sort of like when you have kids, whatever you do is going to be heightened and it's going to go through a megaphone and they're just going to react to it so much bigger. Sometimes the internet's like that.
Yeah.
And so just be careful what you put out there. You don't have to be so negative.
Right. So let's talk about our feelings on this, right?
So what we think about the bands themselves.
But the bands themselves, how we're dealing with this, right? So I was devastated when I heard.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was not just about the financial, but about the fact that many, many, many of my decks had Mana Crypt. The decks I took to cons and stuff, I had those, but I also had decks that didn't, so I could play against people that didn't.
And Dockside.
And Dockside. And Jeweled Lotus.
Yeah.
And Jeweled
And
Lotus.
I had several decks that had all three.
Right.
So I was devastated though. I'm like, it was almost like the 7 stages of dealing with cancer they talk about.
Well, grief, yeah.
Yeah, grief.
Yeah, the 5 stages of grief.
I forget them all, but like arguing and refusal to accept and stuff. I feel like I went through those, you know, but I've come out on the other side and I've realized this. So because of the hurricane, we had a day where we had no work, couldn't go outside, so I fixed all my decks.
Okay.
That was, I shouldn't say all. I fixed all 40 decks I travel with.
Okay.
Okay.
Good grief.
So
I do have like 23, so I guess I'm not that much
I
better.
fixed those, and I found some stuff that's gonna be fun to play. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Is it as fast as what I lost? No. But I'll give you an example. Jin-Gitaxias is the one I was really worried about. Jin-Gitaxias Core Augur, I've mentioned this several times. That's my favorite deck.
Yeah.
You talked me into rebuilding it because I had taken it apart for a
It's
little
so
bit.
awesome. It's so much fun.
But I lost 2 big mana producers from that.
Yeah.
Right.
I need 10 mana to cast him.
Yeah.
2 blue and 8 generic. So that was a tough one. You know what I put in there? And it's meaner, but we'll see
What?
how it spell swindle.
Okay. Yep.
3 and 2 blue mana and
Go get
counter
your
target
treasures.
spell and get treasure tokens equal to its converted mana cost.
Sure. And then there's one that also, I think, I don't think it'd go in there because I think it's red, but it doubles every time you make a treasure.
Yeah, that's
Doubles the amount of
Zorn.
treasures you make.
Yeah, that's Zorn. But
Zorn, whenever you create a treasure.
yeah,
for
but so
addition.
that I'm going to be hunting for a high value spell. I might not have cared to counter it before. I want the mana. You know, I already have mana drain in there, so I did that sometimes anyway to get to my commander. But the treasures is a little more. I can keep it and use it for other things.
So
and-
Right.
what is your, so you're talking about how you dealt with the grief. How do you feel about the decision? Should the cards have been banned? Let's go. through
In
each
my
one of them.
opinion, Dockside should not have been banned. Now,
Okay.
I watched the videos, the professor's video.
Mm-hmm.
He said the opposite. He thought Dockside was the one that should have, and the other two shouldn't have. Even though
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't really care for. He stated he does not like Jewel Lotus. He never used
Right.
it.
Yeah.
I think Dockside shouldn't because red was a weak color to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
There was been argument lately about whether or not maybe it's caught up to white. It's now definitely not. It's lost.
One card doesn't do that.
It has no ramp. Name one other ramp spell for red.
I mean, off the
Hit
top
the
of my
mother
head, I
load.
don't play red
That's
a lot, but they do
10
have
mana.
ramp cards.
By that point, you have mana.
When you have
Anyway,
when you have a lot
we're
of
going to do an
artifacts.
episode after this where we talk about replacement cards.
Yeah.
But my point is, that was the red ramp spell. Maybe not the only one. I do know of other ones.
Yeah, I mean,
but
if-
it was the biggest, the most common, the cheapest.
If you said pick one red spell that you would want to be able to play in any deck that's for ramp, I don't think there's a single person that wouldn't say Dockside Extortionist.
Well, the people that don't know what it was. What's a Dockside?
Well, and the
We
people
I
that
don't- I
didn't
don't
want to
even
spend
think they-
$90 or whatever it had reached.
Well, but
in
what I'm
price.
saying is if you got to just take one card and you get it, and it's just like I want this card to go in every single deck, so I can just break my color identity. I wanted what one red card would you pick? I don't think there's a person that wouldn't pick Dockside. It's just too good.
Right. So
It's such a great
that's
card.
the one I feel like definitely they should not have because it only hurt red.
Yeah. So
And combos with that obviously got hurt too, which is what they were going for. But red as a color got hurt. The
Yeah.
other two were colorless as far as how you could play them.
Yeah.
So they could go in any deck, except Jeweled Lotus can't go in a colorless deck. Right? You have to have color somewhere.
right.
But as far as should they have been banned? Probably.
Yeah. So my view is I am actually okay with all of them being banned. The only one that I was like, I'm not sure how much of a problem it is was Mana Crypt, but that's just because you don't see it as much because it was so expensive. I suspect that if more people played it, it would be more of a problem.
I think
and it's also so old, and it was one of the pillar financial cards, I would say.
it was given out as promotional material for Commander product
Correct.
in the beginning when Commander was
well, that's the
starting.
interesting thing. All these cards are commander specific.
Yeah.
So that speaks to another problem. But just to give my full answer here, I would say that the only one that I was kind of like, it's interesting choice was Mana Crypt, and that was just because it's such a pillar of the financial side where it
And a
holds
pillar
it-
of the history.
it holds its value even without reserve list. And so I thought that was a bold move. But none of this surprises me, and I actually think it's better for the game. Lots of people will be angry at me. I think fast mana was a problem. I think it was an issue. I think it was getting out of control. I think it does create game scenarios where one person gets way far ahead beyond the other people with all those cards. That causes that.
Right.
And I think that takes I think it hurts the fun of the game. So that's how I feel about the bans. But there certainly were some. It doesn't matter if it was better for the game. It still might not have been a good decision because of how it affected so many
Right.
people.
And definitely not all at once. But anyway.
But as pure gameplay wise, I agree with the decision.
So being the only person on the show that doesn't own any of the cards that were banned,
He hates it.
I think that Dockside should not have been banned. I don't see a reason for it to be banned. I understand it produces mana and it could potentially put someone ahead, But the only thing is, it only gives that person as much as as much of a leap in mana as much as pretty much everyone else has at that point. Because it specifically only gives you treasures based off of enchantments and artifacts your opponents control. If they don't control a lot of artifacts and enchantment, it doesn't give you that much.
When played fairly, yes.
Well, even so, even if you're at the end of the day, even if you have that in your opening hand, it's still not going to be valuable until later, unless you have a bunch of these 0 drops out that just got banned. But I think it is kind of funny that they banned a card that was made for Commander in Commander, which is Jeweled Lotus, because it doesn't have.
Well, so was Dockside. It came in
All
a Commander.
three.
No. Literally, Jeweled Lotus is sacrifice it.
Yes.
Use this
No, I
mana
know.
only to cast your Commander. Like that. It's literally made for Commander, and it made it 4 years, and it got banned.
And they waited long enough because they couldn't ban it right away because they made it to sell cards.
Right.
That's the frustrating thing about some of this is, we're the ones who are the gotchas. We went out and bought all these to chase this card that's now banned.
Right. So I think I understand why they banned them. I don't agree with the Dockside. That's probably the one I would say, in my opinion, is the one that is the least notable of the ones that they did ban. I would say that one was the one if you had to pick one and say don't ban one of these, that's the one I'd probably say, because the other two, like Duncan mentioned, are colorless. They can literally go in every single deck that you build. Dockside, you have to at least be committed to red, and it's based off of what everyone else has on the table that gives you the advantage. So if they have more artifacts and enchantments out, it gives you better advantage. If they have less out, it gives you less of an advantage. So it has at least counterplay just in itself. But I do say, like, again, I understand, like Jeff said, play-wise, I get it. Being able to have 7-8 mana on turn 2 untapping, that person wins the game. Like, how do you stop somebody that has 8 mana and you have 2?
Right.
Like, it's just not, there's just nothing to do. I have a way they could have fixed all of this without banning anything, but we'll get to that in a little bit, I guess.
So the interesting thing with that is I understand all the stuff you're saying. I don't even play as much as you guys.
Yeah.
But the amount of times I've seen Mana Crypt win a game, Jeweled Lotus win a game, versus how many times I've seen Dockside Extortionist absolutely get out of control. It's not even close.
Yeah, Dockside.
That's why I say Dockside
That's the problem.
was the
and I think I know what your
worst one to
fix
get
is.
banned.
Well, but-
hold on. Is your fix make Dockside legendary?
No.
Because that would be my fix. Retroactively, errata, Dockside to be legendary. All those combos are now dead. It does one thing only, and it lets you catch up. End of story.
But to counter your point, the reason why Dockside wins is because it has gotten to the point in the game where if you get to do the combo with them, it wins. The people that have a Mana Crypt and Jeweled Lotus out, absolutely, I have seen that win the game. When someone gets a commander out,
That's not what I
3
said.
turns. Yeah, you said that the amount of times that you've seen a Dockside win compared to a Mana Crypt or a Jeweled Lotus, Dockside has outshined
What
it.
I mean is the amount of times that I've seen the game completely changed. Meaning, yeah, there are times where you play Jeweled Lotus and you get your commander out right away. Many times someone does that, someone removes it, and then you just wasted your Jeweled Lotus. And sometimes stuff like that happens with Dockside, but I see Dockside abused a lot more than those other cards. It doesn't mean they're not all bad. They, in my opinion, if there was no money involved and we were just saying what's good for the game, these are not good for the game. But the problem is there is money involved, and then so that makes the decision
but
different.
Let's talk about this. Here's what the professor said about it, and then we'll hear what you had to say about Sloan about how to fix it.
Yeah.
Professor said, print a ton of them. Stop doing this dribs and drabs. Stop holding them back and forcing the price to go up. And print the heck out of them. Put Dockside in precons, where it came from. Put Mana Crypt in precons.
But how does that help the game?
Because what happens
everybody has it. It's mutually assured destruction.
But it's not, because what happens is you have a 100-card deck, and which is why they address Soul Ring too. Because in my opinion, like if this is your reasoning, how does this not apply to everything? But okay, fine. So you have these situations where you have 100 cards. Whoever gets the Dockside, even if we all have it, if we're all sitting around the table and we all have it in our deck, whoever gets it, it's such a big swing.
Only if everybody else has played artifacts, to Johnny's point.
Right. It is
play
more
artifacts.
conditional. It's more conditional. But my point is, part of what I was going to say is what the professor said. The reason why they had to get rid of Mana Crypt and Jeweled Lotus is because not everybody can afford to have those cards and put them in their deck. Regardless of what they say about Soul Ring, their reasoning was Soul Ring is such a staple, we cannot ban it. It is such a staple. You want to know why it's such a staple? It's a $1 card. Everyone owns a Soul Ring. Everyone owns 10 Soul Rings. Everyone owns like 30 Soul Rings. It is not a hard card to own. They come in every single pre-con. They come in every single set almost. They're reprinted, and everyone has them. If these cards were more affordable and were able to be gotten easier, it would be less of a problem because then more people are able to play with them. The problem is when you have a card, when you have two cards that cost almost $400 between the two of them, how many people are you going to come across that can afford to put $400? I've been playing this game for over 10 years. I don't own either of them. I cannot afford to invest $400 in two cards. I just can't.
And that's the thing. I get it. I do have a problem with them selling these cards and then banning them. That seems inappropriate at best. But I don't think they're good for the game. And this is a crux of our disagreement. You guys seem to be okay with fast mana. I'm not okay with fast mana. I don't think it's good.
Says the green player who has it all the time.
I am not okay with fast mana when it's only exclusively available to people who can afford it. That's why I'm not okay with fast mana. I don't like the fact that only certain people can afford a Mana Crypt because it's a $200 card.
But you guys,
I don't like the fact that people
proxy cards.
I do not proxy any cards I do not own.
But your whole group you play with does.
Yeah.
Sure, they do.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
but you can't.
You could just proxy it if you want
but
to.
if I wanted to go into a CEDH tournament, I am at a severe disadvantage because you have to own those cards to play them.
But you could just borrow mine for the tournament.
But my point is that is an issue with the game. They are thinking too much of when they decide to not reprint these things because they want to maintain the value for the people who've invested in them. This is a game. It is not for investing in.
That's
it
not
is
what
for
they're
playing.
doing. They're not maintaining it for the people who own it. They're maintaining it for themselves.
Right.
They want Mana Crypt to stay valuable, Jeweled Lotus to stay valuable, Dockside to stay valuable, so they can sell another set and have that as a chase card. That's why they do it.
That's my point. When they are focusing more on that than the fact that this is supposed to be a game for people to sit down and enjoy, that is an issue. But
I agree with you.
But in regards
in that facet, I agree.
In regards to fast mana, I could care less about it. There are millions of ways to get around it. There's millions of ways to make yourself get through all that. The issue with the monkey, Dockside Extortionist, or the goblin rather. I was thinking of Ragavan. Dockside Extortionist. The issue with him is it is an ETB. The easy fix for it is only if you cast it. That's all you got to do. If you put on that card, you get this only if you cast it. All those flicker combos go away. They no longer
the clones,
work.
Everything.
Everything goes away because
that definitely would work if they ever remade it. Please don't.
That fixes that card in an instant. That resolves that issue very quickly because yes, it's still good. It still leaps you ahead that one turn you get to cast it, but it's not something because I will say this. I played a CDH game unintentionally with David, Jeff's cousin, and our other buddy because we just randomly rolled the dice and I just happened to roll the number that was my CDH deck and I pulled it out and in one turn I flickered Dockside 7 times and I think I was up to 150 treasure tokens because I just kept flickering them and I just kept comboing off because Dave was playing Urza and a whole deck is artifacts. So he was giving me like 15 artifacts per turn. It was hilarious. So in regards to the combos with it, yes, I understand that right now, the way it lies, it's very combo heavy. And it's very, if you can just do it a couple of times, you can propel yourself into the future and probably win the game. However, if it simply said, when you cast this, that eliminates a lot of those issues.
So let's say, can we say 6 artifacts on the board between 4 players is not a lot? That's pretty normal.
Yeah, 6.
So what you're saying is you're okay with spend 2 mana, get 6.
To spend 2 mana to get 6, yeah, sure.
Right. So what I'm saying is I don't think that's good for the game.
I don't
6
see
temporary mana though.
6 temporary mana,
one-time use mana.
But it's going to jump you ahead a ton. It's 2. Spell Swindle What are you typically going to get out of that? Typically 5 to 6 mana, right? If you're happy,
Yeah.
you're happy. A lot of times you might get 3 to 4. You're pretty happy. How much does that card cost mana wise? 5, right?
Yep.
3 and 2 blue. You're talking about getting more mana for 2. That's ultimately the problem with these cards is they're too fast.
But it had Mana Crypt had a downside.
Yes,
Right.
it did.
Right? It hurt you. And I have seen that hit somebody
Yep.
every turn in the game.
Yeah,
They just
one
roll
game,
bad
I
and
probably
it
got
happens.
30 damage from it.
I have seen, and Joel Lotus, you can only use once. Now, I do think Joel Lotus should have not have been able to cast a commander the first time. It should have had a caveat. If you have already cast your commander from the command zone at least once, then you can use this to cast it again.
Well, and it helps pay the commander tax too, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Technically,
so
you pick a color, and then it produces 3 of that color.
So you can use that for whatever you want.
Right.
Exactly.
But I'm saying if they had done that, that would be considered more fair, I think.
Maybe. These cards were, I mean, certainly Dockside and Jeweled Lotus, I think they were designed as chase cards. I suspect that people knew they were going to have to ban them at some point.
Dockside wasn't,
and that's my problem with it.
wasn't designed as a chase card. It was in a deck.
That's true. They missed that one.
Yeah, it was in a precon.
No, they didn't miss it. It was intentional. I think they just,
Underestimated the value.
yeah, maybe. But I think that here's what I think, actually. I think that these bans weren't about us. I think these bans were a statement to Wizards that they are not going to put up with these kind of cards anymore.
And
That could
and
be
if
true.
they have communicated this better to the community, that might be a valuable thing.
They might not have been able to. I want you to think about this. If
Okay.
they have been talking to Wizards saying, hey, you guys are killing us. You're printing stuff that is not good for our format.
Right.
Our players love it. You're basically selling them crack.
Yeah.
We need you to stop.
And
Wizards, being
Yeah.
owned by Hasbro, is like, nah,
right.
not going to do it. If you would then publicly come out and say Wizards refused, we tried, blah, blah, so now we're going to ban them, you have now put Wizards in a position where you're their adversary.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is tough because it involves money.
I think this was the rules committee. I do believe they did it for the game. I do believe they want to get rid of the fast mana, but I think they did it as a message to Wizards that they're not going to put up with the shenanigans
I
anymore.
actually had a thought in regards to this that it is completely speculative. But I do wonder if I was one of those guys and my friend passed away who loved the core of this game. I do wonder if some of this was a tribute sort of thing to him. Like, you know, we're going to do this thing because it's the right thing to do for the game. Because they're getting a ton of heat on this.
I don't think they thought they would get this much. I think
Oh,
they
come
thought
on.
that we would. I
They
think they
had to
thought
know. They're
we would
smart
all.
people.
I think they thought we would all stick our tails between our legs, lay down and cry for a while, and then suck it up and go on.
Well, if they were that short-sighted, that sad, I suspect
I think
they
everything
knew.
about this shows that they were short-sighted. They didn't tell the CAG. Didn't think they'd be upset by that.
I think they were. I think what you said earlier is true. They were stuck in this really tough situation where it's like, okay, we tell the CAG. Does that then open us up to more of this insider
Right, and there
trading
has been a
thing?
history of the CAG.
Right. If we don't do it, we keep not doing anything. If we do it, people are going to be mad. If we come out ahead and give warnings, and people will sell it off. Like what were they supposed to do? They were trying to do the best they could. I think they could have communicated it better. I do think that it makes the game better, but I do feel really bad for everybody out there who maybe the best card they owned in their entire collection, maybe their collection's $1,000 or less, and the best card they owned just got made worthless.
Yeah.
And I feel for them. That sucks.
Well, and here's the thing, though. They're not worthless. They have value. And I don't understand why, Joel Lotus still has value.
Because there are still some decks where it works in. I watched a video where...
So you could use it in decks where where you're using it to tap for mana, like if you have some sort of
there's a deck where
modern deck with
somehow it makes it make mana.
There's some legacy cube
yeah.
deck where it's available.
Well, if
to
you have
use.
Urza, it would make it make mana.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
so
what I'm
there's
saying.
still decks where this card is playable because it's zero
Just
cost.
not in EDH because it's
Yeah.
banned.
Right.
And that's another thing I want to talk about. So in my play group, that I play with a lot besides you guys. There's a lot of different viewpoints on this.
I bet.
And one guy in particular, well, two guys in particular, have said, I am not paying attention to this ban. And I said, then I am not playing with you because you're cheating.
Right.
You know, I'm trying to take a stand and point out, like it, dislike it, whatever. These are the rules we play by.
Right.
All right. If you are going to play that, you might as well play Black Lotus 2 because that's banned as well.
Yeah.
You might as well play
Paradox Engine, Golo.
Yeah, all that stuff. Flash, whatever. Because they're just as banned.
The thing I don't understand now is if everybody doesn't have mana crypt, how does this hurt anyone? It slows the game down, but it slows it down for everybody. What's the problem?
Well, and I don't think it actually does. I played a bunch of games yesterday. That was my first time playing since the ban. It didn't slow anything down.
Right. So
Most games, not
other
most,
than the money, other
not
than the
most
money.
games. There were games where I never saw any of these cards.
Right.
And they were in decks, just never saw them.
Yeah.
You know, they were a good bump if you got them, but most times you would have to work without them unless you happen to hit them.
Yeah.
You know?
And please understand, guys, like some of us here, we did lose money on this.
I lost a lot.
I'm trying to talk about the play of the game. I probably had at least 5 Jeweled Lotuses and somewhere around 6 or 7 Mana Crypts.
Right.
And you
had-
probably had in the 10 or 15
I had
range.
12 Mana Crypts, 10 Jeweled Lotus, and I believe 8 Dockside.
And I only had 1 Dockside because, again,
And
I'm
I had
not
just
a big red
I had
player,
just
so-
bought a Dockside a week previous.
Yeah, which stinks. So, want to be clear, we're not saying we don't understand and sympathize with the loss. We do. We're trying to have a discussion about what is best for the game. And I understand money is involved in that, but just to take a step outside the monetary situation, just go, what's better for the game? That's sort of where I'm coming from, where I think this is actually good for the game.
So another one of the members in my group has said, all right, I'll listen. I'm not going to like it. I'm mad at Wizards, and I'm not buying any product. I'm just going to proxy everything. I think that is also an unreasonable viewpoint.
Because then the game would be dead.
Wizards didn't make this ban, right?
Yeah,
now, you can argue that Wizards was ultimately responsible because they push these types of cards and they inflate the value of these cards.
Right.
Yeah, by
get
creating
that.
scarcity.
But I don't agree with, I'm going to proxy everything. I'm not going to buy. Because if you have the money to buy, you should be buying. It's your local game store you're hurting there.
Well, you're also, if you don't buy cards from Wizards, they go out of business. They sell it off. It goes out of business. And we don't have Magic anymore. So I don't understand how that makes any sense.
But I'm more worried about the local game shop. Wizards is big. And going by the percentages, let's pretend that the percentages I'm seeing are the real percentages. This is like 5-7%, right? That would do this. That's not going to affect Wizards. It's going to kill your local game store.
So we say
That's true.
it's going to kill a local game store. So you're thinking about Wizards as a corporation. Wizards is a corporation, but it's also a group of people with jobs. And if 5 to 7% less revenue comes into those jobs, they'll have 5 to 7% less jobs.
That's not how corporate works. They'd have 10% less jobs.
Yeah, that's probably true. But they would definitely have less employees. So you look, making the decision not to buy the product is not a great decision. However, you could make the decision to say, hey, in our game system, we're going to set different rules and we're going to say we're not using some of these chase cards. Like when we see Wizards do this and they create a Jeweled Lotus and we go, you know what? That's a problem for the game. You can choose in your group to say, we're not going to play that. We're not going to chase that. We're not going to buy that.
So this brings up something that I've been wanting to talk about. Jeweled Lotus specifically, I have a real problem with them banning. The rules committee was involved in the development of that card.
Right.
Wizards, at the very least, consulted with Sheldon Menery and the rules committee when they were making that card. I remember when it came out, it was a big deal. They said, hey, we have talked to the rules committee. It's all good, baby.
Even furthermore, Josh Lee Kwai in the video he came out with, he told them because he was involved on the CAG with Jeweled Lotus they asked him about, he told them a year before they made it, do not make this card. This is a horrible idea. This is a ridiculously good card. Do not make this card. This is going to be so bad for the format. Sure enough, here we are.
So
5 years
I mean,
later, 4 years
that
later.
is what seems to be the line that is being said, is that the concerns that the rules committee had about this, the Wizards did not listen to them. But at that point, when Wizards directly says something contradictory to the truth, that's the point at which you can stand up and say, whoa, hold on. We did not approve that card. You could word it in a way that's diplomatic
And
say, I believe there was some miscommunication here. Maybe some lines were crossed somewhere, but we actually did not approve this card. We had some concerns about it, which we never got to fully get addressed due to time constraints.
And let's give props to Josh and Rachel and all of them over there, because they monetarily involved with Wizards. So it takes some bravery to go out there and speak the truth. And
right. Yeah.
Good for them.
And they're willing to do it, but but the rules committee wasn't. That's my problem.
The rules committee, look, Josh is a communicator. He understands how to communicate. They may not have that skill set.
No, I really.
And that's not a hit against them. That's not an attack.
Hold on. Don't say it again, Duncan. Don't say it.
No.
You're going to get more cards. Calm down.
No.
Don't be saying it, man. That guy could be watching.
Yeah.
But, somebody said, these guys that made this game, they're the geeks that were making their own game out of Magic the Gathering way back in the day.
For the love of the game.
A lot of us geeks don't have great social skills, right? Let's be honest.
Not to paint with the broad brush or anything.
Yeah, but I'm just saying we're not real good at that. So
there couldn't be a contingent.
They're
of
probably not good at it. Right. Sheldon was the face. He did it so that they didn't have to, and now that he's gone, they're trying to forge a path without.
I think the bans are good for the game.
I think they're good for the game. I think it was absolutely deplorable how it was handled. I think you ban one of them, and I would say based on their criteria, I guess you would have to pick Dockside and say, we're banning Dockside and Nadu. We are looking at other fast mana things to see which ones are a problem and which ones aren't. There may be further bans in the future. Don't mention specific cards.
Yeah, because this was a lot at once.
Yeah, this was a lot.
This was I think that was the other thing they said, that this was the most that they've ever banned at one time, period. Like they've never banned 4 cards at once.
And of the cards, 3 of them very high value. Nadu, which needed to be banned, was $3.
Well, and again, I agree with that, because Mana Crypt, in my opinion, was a pillar of the financial side.
They gave it out as promotional
held
material
up the value.
But not just finances. I keep pointing to the fact that was one of the original cards promoted with Commander product.
Yeah.
So I do have a problem.
It's a wild thing that happened.
I mean, it's just crazy. We're in a new world now. We're forging a path.
Christopher Columbus in it, man.
Yeah.
Just
our next episode, we'll talk about some ways to move on.
Well, real quick, I want to do something. Let's end on a positive note. I wanted to bring this up before we end it, because it sounds like we're winding down here. So, the 4 cards that are banned, we're going to play a quick little game. If you could unban one and ban a different card, which one are you picking? Go first.
I would unban Dockside.
And then who are you going to ban? If you had to replace them, like you got to put something in there to replace it.
I can't pick that quick, but we're going to talk about that next episode. We're going to have a segment where we talk about what we think is the next thing that should be banned.
Gotcha.
So let's just do which one would you take out?
Which one would you unban, Jeff? If you had to pick one to unban.
I would unban Mana Crypt.
Unban Mana Crypt.
Because of what it does.
By the way, you can say none. If you don't want to unban any.
I mean, I wouldn't unban any of them.
No, I'm forcing you to pick one. You got to pick one.
Okay.
I would unban Mana Crypt because it just affects people so significantly.
And you?
I think I would have to go Dockside.
Yeah. I mean, Dockside had the grossest combos, but Red needs Dockside. I really think it does. I think it needs a replacement card made quickly. If since it's banned now.
That's scary. Please do a better job.
Yeah.
But I want to say,
so you make it legendary and you say, if you cast it.
I want to say one thing at the end here. We've talked about it before. The idea of considering others as more significant than yourself is sort of an important thing to apply to some of these situations. If you are going to look at what either one of these boards is doing and go, they're terrible people, they had bad intent, they don't care, they're horrible people, you're going to end up with really bad views. If instead you go, these are people who love the game, even if they made a mistake, people can make a mistake, but they might have done it from a good heart. And just consider others as more significant. Give them a chance. Think the best of them. We'll all be better if we would do that more.
And do you know what good came out of this, though?
What?
So something just the silver lining on the cloud. Well, I don't know about good, but silver lining financially. Mana Vault now has gone up 200%.
So that's the next one on the.
I mean,
chopping
so I'm
block.
just saying those people that lost money
Yeah.
probably had Mana Vault too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe
probably
they
did.
recouped of it.
I think I have.
So
one.
that helped me a little bit.
I got one.
I've got a bunch. I probably have more of that than Mana Crypt. So
Yeah, I don't think that's never been a problem either. Mana Vault is not a problem.
yeah.
No.
So anyway, that's all the time we have for today. I want to thank Jack May at Info Programs for putting this together for us, editing, producing, setting up the camera for us for our first recorded episode. Thank you, Jack.
Yep.
You can check us out on the web at commanderspod.com. You can email us. Please email us nicely at cast@commanderspod.com. I didn't really cause this. This is a tongue-in-cheek thing, but it sure
Yes, you
seems
did.
like they were listening.
Listen, if you bring the heat, though, prepare to get it thrown back at you.
Yeah, definitely. You can support us at patreon.com/commanderspod. Check out our YouTube Commanders Pod. I actually have a music video. I was going to play at the end here, but we went a little long, so I think I'm just going to post it on YouTube and people could check it out.
Yeah.
A little farewell video to the cards
In
we
memoriam.
lost. In memoriam, as it were. And remember, if you really want to take your aggression out in the game, kill Andrew first.
If you can.
Commander's Pod, where the stories unfold, with heroes and villains, new and old. Duncan, Jeff, and Sloan guide the way in the world of E-Days we play. So tune in, friends, let's draw and go. In the Commander's Pod, the love will show. From our decks to yours, we share the spark in this world of magic. We'll leave a mark.